Time for some more Hilda, me hearties. Hey everyone, welcome to Princess Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with Hilda, Season 2, Episode 3. So last time we had Pirate Ghosts, aka Draugen. And I couldn't help but make the comparison to Draugr from Skyrim because, that game has been out since 2011 and it's been re-released so many times and I've played it so much, it's like I had to. It's just the rules at this point. Um, but, now we go into episode 3, and I'm excited to see what more this series has in store. It's kind of weird. This is a series that I initially was having a hard time getting into, and that I dropped at one point. But I decided to pick it back up because I felt like I felt like I could give it more of a chance. And I'm glad I did because the show ended up, getting better from that point, a lot better. And now we're on season 2 and showing no signs of stopping. It's started off really strong this season, and we're kind of like not quite in the realm of season 1's best yet, but we're getting there. We're still at the high end of things, I would say. Um, and I just really kind of view this series almost as a little bit of a comfort show now. Because it's very comforting and fun to watch. It's not too stressful. Like at the end of the day, it's not going to like have that high of stakes. Even at its most intense, you know things are going to turn out fine. But at the same time, it's very fun and whimsical and gets just really immersive. And I really like the vibe it goes for. Like the opening really sets you up for that. Like that just with that sigh being part of the opening there, it's like it makes you feel like you're just letting go. Like you're just releasing the stresses of the world and sitting back to watch a fun, cute show. And I've obviously talked about this before, but this series was based off of a British comic strip, I believe. And you can kind of tell, like, it's not as comic-y as, like, Peanuts or Garfield, but you can kind of tell it has that vibe to it. And it works. It works for it because, again, it gives it that just kind of relaxing atmosphere, even, again, when it does get a little more intense. Um, it's not the perfect show. It does still have some issues, but it's definitely grown on me a lot. And I'm excited to see where it goes, especially with like new characters we've already been introduced to this season, and some setups for the future with the troll circle and everything. So we're just going to get into this and hope for the best with episode 3. So, that being said, when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. And excuse me for saying this, but fuck yes! This is what I'm talking about. This is an episode on the level of the best from season 1, possibly even beyond it. This was one of my favorite episodes for sure. It might even possibly be my favorite. This episode was so fucking good. It was smart, it was clever, it flipped the script on a lot of things. It gave us development for Kaisa, gave us development for Frida, and even Hilda to a degree. It was charming and funny, but also really exciting and fun. It was literally everything that represents the best of this series. And it was like just so goddamn good. Just from an entertainment perspective, it was so good. I was so invested. It went by like that. Like, I'm not kidding you. I was actually pretty surprised when it ended. Um, but I understood instantly why I was surprised, so I wasn't like making this shocked expression or anything. Because I knew why it went by so fast. Because I was enjoying the shit out of it so goddamn much. It was just so good. Like, I've been wanting to see more of Kaisa for a long time, really, because she's one of those characters who hasn't really gotten a lot of screen time. Like, we've seen a little more from her, but not really as much as I would have liked to see. And this episode really scratched that itch for me. Which, okay, that was funny. As I said that I was scratching an itch on my hand. That was timely. Um, and completely unintentional, surprisingly. Anyway, point is, Frida's growth in this episode is amazing. It shows like what we already knew about her being extremely smart and observant, and shows how she utilizes that through this maze. And it becomes increasingly more clear as the episode goes along. Ooh, excuse me. That she is following in the footsteps of these other keepers of the books, these other witches that we see. Um, and that she is very clearly like set up to be a witch. We even see at the end that when they're fighting the void, I guess you could say, she even uses magic. She takes a wand from Kaisa and flawlessly opens that portal door without any bit of practice. She is just naturally gifted and naturally inclined to use magic. And obviously, like we already know, she would be an amazing librarian because, again, her intellect, her thirst for knowledge, her her observational skills, all of that really lends itself well. So it's like now she's going to be training under Tildy, who also, trained Kaisa, and she's going to be a witch. And apparently, Hilda's apparently going to be her familiar. Like that one caught me a little off guard. I guess anything can be a familiar. Like we see that Tildy has like a cloud, and we know familiars can be animals. I guess they can be anything. Even a person can be a familiar. So that's pretty fun. That's pretty cool. Um, and going back to Kaisa for a moment, I like how they characterized her. She's a witch, but she's not confident in her abilities. It's not that she can't perform magic, it's that she has serious self-confidence issues to the point where it kind of cripples her. She's known that her master, the witch who trained her, has had this book all these years. But she's been so afraid of going to get it back because she didn't want her master to know that she really isn't good at magic. She didn't want to let her down because she valued her opinions. She valued her her thoughts on her. So she was always afraid to actually confront her. Not to mention getting past the maze would have probably been difficult anyway, for her. They needed Frida to get past that maze. Like Hilda obviously helped a lot too, but Frida was necessary for sure. Kaisa probably could have solved quite a bit of it, but not all of it, I feel. Um, but yes, characterizing Kaisa in this way to show that she's not this, like, amazing, flawless, powerful witch, but that she's a self conscious, witch who can't even perform too much magic without, instructions in front of her. It feels relatable. Like, to me specifically, I don't know about anyone else, but this is not entirely comparable, but I have a hard time remembering a lot of things. And one of the big things that I have a hard time remembering is, I know this sounds a little silly or weird, but how to cook. When I have instructions, I can cook fine because I'm following instructions. But without instructions, my mind blanks on just what to do or how to measure things out. Like, I understand, like, the gist of things, but I can't figure things out with that. I can't, like, figure out how to, like, specify measurements, for example. Like, oh, I'm gonna make this soup or whatnot. Let's just use that as an example. How much of this do I put in compared to how much of this? Like, to balance it out and everything. That's what confuses me. And it's always something I've had a problem with. I need to basically have a recipe in front of me to be able to, cook well. And I know, like, it sounds like, oh, that's kind of cheating or whatnot, but it's like, I'm not like a professional chef or anything. I I I can cook fine. I can cook good food when I have a recipe or just some level of instruction. One big thing, for example, is if, like, I'm going to, like, cook meat, for example. How long do I cook it on each side, like if I'm pan frying it or something, to make sure that it's not raw in the middle, That's something I've always had an issue with. I don't memorize that stuff. A lot of people memorize that. Like, oh, you cook it, like, I don't know, just pulling a number out of my head here, 3 minutes on each side, let's say. I'm sure there's some piece of meat that requires 3 minutes on each side, but you get the idea. Like, you cook it so many minutes on each side, and then you're done. It's like that will give you the perfect cook. It's like I can't memorize that. I don't know why. Maybe it's because of my autism. Maybe it's something else. I don't know. But it does not, like, stick in my head. Yet I can remember Pokemon names like that. But for some reason, that kind of stuff just confounds me. And so I need to follow instructions. I need to follow a recipe. Or, again, even if not a full recipe, just a guideline. Here's another example with that. I can't measure things by eye. There's a lot of people who can measure things like, oh, let's pour in some flour. This is about 1 cup. I can't do that. I need a cup measure. So seeing Kaisa be like this just with magic instead, it feels validating. Especially because Kaisa is never looked down on for it, outside of just looking down on herself. Tildy never judges her for it, and in fact calls her a splendid witch and stuff. It's never this point of contention outside of just personal feelings towards herself. And that is super validating. That is just extremely sweet and beautiful to see. And absolutely something this series would do. Like, the series is very comforting, like I said in the pre-thoughts. It is a comfort show. And this kind of shit is a big reason why. So, I really, really love this episode. It just did everything right. Like I said, it might be my favorite of this series so far. And that's saying a lot, because season 1 had some really great episodes. But this one just knocked it out of the park. And I'm just kind of excited about that. I'm just kind of in a state of hype right now. Um, the entire like old fashioned practice of throwing the witches into this like I forgot exactly what it's called, but it's basically the flow of failed phantoms from Ghost and Molly McGee. I like how it's called out for being old fashioned, but that the reason they do it is basically the same reason they have the enchanting Grom fight in Owl House. I'm making a lot of references today. It's the same reason as that because there is an ancient monster that needs to be fed, and this is the only way to handle that. It's fucked up beyond reason, but it's doing something. And yeah, that's just it's so insane to see that kind of thing in this series because that's pretty dark if you think about it. I think it might be one of the darkest things in this show so far because it's implied that for a long time, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, maybe even longer, that witches have been, sacrificing their own to feed this eldritch god as and it's just that is super fucked up. Like literal human sacrifice. That's insane. That's pretty damn dark. I just love a lot of the implications of where this is going to go, though, with Frida. Like, I love that Hilda wanted to be a witch, but realizes by the end that it's like Frida is better suited for it and that she'd be a great familiar to her instead. And the thing is, Hilda is much more of an adventurer. She's much more of like a warrior. We even see that in this episode with her wielding the sword and everything. She's not a witch, but Frida absolutely is. And I wonder if we're going to get like more of that with this series and just this season. Are we going to get more of like each of our main characters like kind of finding out like what they're going to do going forward? Like Frida being a witch, Hilda being like, this just warrior adventurer and something for David. I don't know at the moment. Just something for him. Because that would be really cool if they explored that kind of thing. Like looking into the futures for them. I think that would be pretty badass. Um, but yeah, like I said, this was a fantastic episode, and I would love to hear what you think. So tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this episode of Hilda Season 2? And for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.